Hey, what's up you guys? Today I am doing a good old-fashioned statistics video. I have not done one of these in a while and I love going through statistics. I just think it's really interesting. I keep a spreadsheet with all of my book statistics and my film statistics. Well, two separate spreadsheets obviously. And I just love like making them all color coordinated and like looking for patterns and stuff like that. And you know what's funny is I actually hate maths and I can't do maths, but there's something about like a good old-fashioned pie chart that is just so satisfying to me. So that's what we're going to go through today. I made a lot of charts, mostly pie charts, because that's the ones that I can understand. And we will just see if there's any patterns and stuff like that. Let's get into the statistics. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like, please subscribe. If you have any thoughts on anything that I say, leave a comment down below. If you want to leave a comment but you don't know what to say, just leave a little emoji, let me know you watched. And thank you for watching, and let's get into my statistics. So we're going to start off with some quick-fire facts. The oldest book that I read in 2023 was Aesop's Fables. This was published in 1501. Then in 2023 I read 7 new releases. So that was 2 Cassandra Clare books, 2 Brandon Sanderson books, the Britney Spears memoir, the Paris Hilton memoir, and Hellbent by Lee Berdugo. And they were all published in 2023, obviously. And the shortest book I read last year was Love Poems by Caroline Duffy. This was only 55 pages, and it was just a little short poetry collection. And the longest book I read was Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, and this was 688 pages. So, obviously, I will go into more about my pages in a moment. I do have a chart for that, but I didn't really read any super long books last year. Like, obviously, this is thick, but it's not anything crazy. So I think this year ahead I want to read a book that's over 1,000 pages because I haven't done that in a while, and you know, they're a challenge, they are a challenge, but I think it'll be interesting to get into something that long and just like spend a good solid amount of time investing myself in a book again. Let's jump into the pie charts. So the first pie chart I have for you today is all about my star ratings. So as you can see, I had a majority 4-star ratings. This was 34.9%, and then 5 stars were 28.6%. So I had 22 and then 18 of those. That shows that I am choosing books that I know I'm going to love, and that is really good, especially because I did read less books this year. So it means I'm reading less books, but I'm reading a lot of books that I really loved. 3 stars as well, 23.8%. That is still good. 3-star books for me are still books I really like. And then unrated is just 2. That was just a couple poetry collections. I don't give poetry collections star ratings. I only read one 1-star book. I'm pretty sure that was Aesop's Fables actually, which is also the oldest book that I read, which is funny. And I read 5 2-star books. So overall, I done really well in 2023 in picking good books that I'm going to enjoy, and I'm very happy with that. I honestly can't see this chart getting any better. I'm glad it's quite a good split between 5, 4, and 3 though, because if every book was a 5-star book, then no star is a 5-star book, if you get what I mean. So it's nice to, you know, still have those levels of like, yes, I like this one, I really like this one, and then I love this one. So I'm really happy with how that pie chart has worked out. This second chart is the format of how I read the book. So I read 9 audiobooks, 1 ebook, and 53 physical books. I'm really happy with this again. If anything, I would prefer the audiobooks to be 12, purely because I am paying for Audible, so I'm getting a credit every month, so I might as well be using that every single month. But it's okay, because I will get to them eventually, later on down the line, so it's not that big a deal. Ebooks, I went through a big phase a couple of years ago where I was really into ebooks again, but I just have not even turned my Kindle on at all. The only ebook that I actually read it on my laptop, and it was one of the Batman comics that I was reading from like a series. Yeah, I'm happy with this. I don't have any set goals again to do with physical versus audio or anything like that. I just read what I want to read, kind of when I want to read it. But it would be nice to get back into audiobooks again, because I do really enjoy an audiobook. It just gets put to the wayside because I really love podcasts as well, and I am subscribed to so many podcasts. So basically by the time I finish them all at the end of a week, the next week begins and it all come out again. So that's why audiobooks have just kind of went to the wayside a little bit, because I just love podcasts so much. But you know, it's not really a big issue. Next we have the years that books were published in. So I read 1 book from 1500s, 1 book from 1600s, 2 books from the 1800s, and then 7 that were published between 1900 and 1949, 20 from 1950 to 1999, 3 books from 2000s, 12 books from 2010s, and then 17 books from the 2020s. And as we already discussed, 7 of those were from 2023. So I'm okay with this pie chart, to be honest. It's still a decent split between older books and newer books. It's almost 50-50, to be honest, if you count older books as anything from like 1999 and below. I would like to get back into like some more classics. You know, I do read a lot of modern classics still, but I would like to get back into like the 1800s books and stuff like that. But it's not really a big deal. I'm a little surprised there's nothing from the 1700s at all. But again, I just haven't really been focusing on classics that much anymore. And modern classics, I barely even count as like classics. I don't know, when I pick them up, I don't think of them as being like, okay, this is going to be a challenge as much anymore. I'm more just like, this is a book. I mean, as you can see, I have a lot of them here next to me. Whereas when I pick up the Penguin Classic, I'm right, okay, here we go. This is a moment. Whereas these ones are like my books that I read. So yeah, years are okay. I'm pretty happy with how they worked out and break down there. Next we have my pages pie chart. So I read one book that was between 0 and 99 pages. 28% of my books were between 100 and 199, and 23.9 were between 200 and 299. And then as you can see, way over half of the books that I read then in total were less than 300 pages, and I'm okay with this again. Still, I would like to get into some bigger books again next year, or well, this current year, but to be honest, if I was reading bigger books, I probably wouldn't have hit my reading goal, because my reading goal was 60 books and I read 63, I believe. I probably should have double checked that. It's either 62 or 63. 28.4% were between 300 and 399, and then a little bit above that. I just really haven't been picking up bigger books at all. And again, I'm not mad about it. That's what it is. But it would be nice to pick up a few bigger books this year and get more into that challenge again. Next, we have my pages per month. So this is how many pages of a book I read throughout 2023. I'm not going to go through it month by month, as you can see, though. It is actually pretty stable, which I was surprised about. I kind of thought it'd jump up a little bit more up and down. And there is a couple of months like October, that was when I had Trick or Treat-a-thon going on, so I really forced myself to read back then, which is good. I enjoyed doing that. But then in November, obviously, is the lowest month, so I think that is a response to the fact that I was pushing myself so hard in October. November hit, and I was like, okay, let's chill out a little bit. But overall, this is pretty even out. I'm not mad about this at all. I hadn't really thought about it at all until I made this chart. So my next chart is for the age range of the books that I've been reading, and this one's a little bit surprising. So as you can see, 3.2% of them, aka 2 books, were children's books, 9.5, aka 6, were young adult, and then 87.3% were adult books, so that's 55. And yeah, so that is in total 63 books. Okay, we got there in the end. Yeah, I knew that I hadn't really been picking up young adult anymore. I knew I'd kind of phased away from it, but I didn't realise it was like this much. I thought there was a little bit more young adult in there, but to be honest, there isn't at all. But I'm not really mad about that. You know, I am an adult, and I have no issue with adults reading young adult books. I do enjoy young adult books on occasion now, but it's just not something that I seek out and I really go to anymore. It's not my go-to kind of age category, and that's okay. I'm not mad about it. I feel like I get more out of adult books, to be honest. It is what it is. But it's just interesting because I did think I read a few more young adult than this, but apparently not. So yeah, that was an interesting one when I made this. Next we have my genres, and I'm not going to go through every single genre on the board, but as you can see, fantasy is the majority, 31.7%, and then this would probably be higher if you combine like dystopian with fantasy, which sometimes it is. Sometimes dystopian's put in with sci-fi, and then horror as well. Horror could be sci-fi, it could be fantasy. So sci-fi, fantasy, horror, dystopian, if you put all them together, it would be like a very large percentage of my reading, and I'm pretty happy with that. I do enjoy fantasy. I was surprised it was so high, because if you asked me to name the fantasy books I've read this year, I probably could not read 20 of them. In my head, I've read a lot more kind of like historical fiction and like contemporary books, but apparently not, 31.7. So yeah, that was interesting. And then next we have my owned books. So basically, do I own the book, or do I borrow it, or do I get it from somewhere else, blah blah blah. And what I'm very happy about this year is that I've been using the library so much more, and I love that. I've always wanted to use the library more. However, back when I lived with my parents still, the library wasn't far from my house at all, but it was just like a little bit out of the way. So basically I've been using the library a lot more than I used to, and I'm very happy with that. So Audible, 8. 3 books I borrowed. That's probably just because they were like Andrew's from here, or maybe they were my dad's. but probably Andrew's, to be honest. Kindle Unlimited 1, that was the one book, the one Batman book that I read on my laptop. And then 18 from the library, and then 33 owned. I'm happy with that. If anything though, I would like to continue to get my owned physical TBR down. It's not high, it's only in the 30s now, which is like nothing. But I would like to still get that done. So that is definitely doable this year. Although there's those books, we all have them that you've bought years ago and you say you still want them, you would never unhaul it, but you never ever pick it up. So, you know, we'll try our best though. And I'm happy to keep using the library. It's a great resource and I love like how easy and accessible it is now for me. Next we have, was it a reread? 90.5% of my books were not rereads, 9.5 were, so that is 57 and then 6. I'm happy with this as well. I do like rereading, but I also love reading new stories and new books, and there's so many books in the world that I will never get a chance to get to them all, which is the sad reality of life. So I'm quite happy to not be rereading that much, but every once in a while it's nice to jump back into a reread. We are now going into my author breakdowns and a little bit of explanation here. I don't track authors more than once, so this isn't, for example, if I read 2 Cassandra Clare books, that wouldn't add like 2% onto the pie chart. I would only count it as 1. So I basically just count each author one time, and then when I read other books by the same author, I don't fill in like the gender or the country or anything like that of the author. I just count each author one time. So going into that, here we have my author gender breakdown, and I'm very happy with this. I do not track this throughout the year in terms of, I don't look at it and say, oh, I've read 3 male authors in a row, like I should read a female author. I just let it play out however it plays out, and it always kind of works out 50-50, which I love. We have 48.2% or 46.2% female and then 53.8% male, and I am so happy with that. It could not get any better other than like exactly 50-50. And if you actually broke it down to like the amount of books by a female author and the amount of books by a male author, female actually probably would go up more because a lot of my favourite authors are female. You know, I've read a lot of Daphne du Maurier, I love Cassandra Clare, the Brontes, you know, if you broke it down like that, the female side would actually probably be higher, but as it is, I'm pretty happy with this. It cannot get better, especially because I'm not like consciously going out of my way to read like a male author, a female author, a male author, a female author. I'm just letting it play out, and it worked out pretty well. So I'm happy with that, and I feel like every year it's kind of around the same from what I remember. But that's just because a lot of my favourite authors are female. So now we have the countries that all of the authors I read come from, and again, if I read 3 books by the same Scottish author, that only counts as 1 on the Scottish tally, for example. So as you can see, the USA is still the biggest at 58.5%, but that is closer to 50% than I actually expected, so I'm pretty happy with that. The US is the biggest publishing country. A lot of the biggest authors all come from the US, so it's hard to avoid that being like a very large percentage of your reading. At least I find it difficult anyway. But I wasn't consciously trying to read from other countries this year the way that I was in previous years. I think 2022 especially, I really tried to diversify my reading in terms of like countries, and then it stressed me out a little bit too much. So 2023 I was like, you know what, I'll just like chill out, let it play out, and it still worked out pretty diverse in some sense. Scotland, I did want to read 12 different Scottish authors. I only read 7 in the end, but I'm not too mad about it because, again, basically that example I just used, I did read, there was one Scottish author, I read 3 of his books. So, you know, if I worked out by that, I probably did read 12 books by Scottish authors. But, you know, it doesn't always show like that exactly on the chart, which I'm fine with. And yeah, if there's one thing I want to say, it is that I could probably diversify from outside of Europe a little bit, but even then, you know, Argentina, Iran, Japan, Russia is technically Asia, Argentina, you know, actually I'm reading from a little bit around the world, so I'm pretty happy with this. I would like USA to be no more than 50% this year, but I'm not going to stress myself out and like go overboard looking for that. And then our final chart is the amount of books I read each month, and as you can see, October I did really push myself. That was my biggest month. I read 8 books in October, but then November suffered for that. November was my lowest month with only 3, well, tied with December actually. But you know, overall it's pretty evened out. There's a lot of 5s there, a lot of 6s, so I'm not too mad about that at all. Again, you just read what you read, to be honest, or I do anyway. I'm not stressing myself out. I'm not going to do the same this year. I'm not going to force myself to read if I'm not in the mood. But I'm happy to see that I am being pretty consistent still with all my reading and, you know, just getting the books in there. And I'm enjoying most of that I read, as we went over, you know, for my ratings. Most of it was 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. So what I'm doing is working for me, and I'm pretty happy with that. And with that, that was our final chart. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was interesting in some sense. I really enjoyed statistic videos. I love watching other people's statistic videos. That's a hard word to say, actually, statistics. It's not really, but for me it is a little bit. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, please subscribe. If you have any thoughts on any of my charts or anything like that, let me know in the comments. I would be happy to engage with you. Again, if you don't have anything to say, if you want to let me know you're there, just leave a little emoji. I know there's like an actual graph, like not pie chart, bar chart. I don't know. There's a chart emoji anyway. Do that. Do whatever you want. Let me know you're here. And I will see you hopefully soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.